skull or what? Yeah.
It's a monkey wearing a mask and he has a chainsaw. That's my symbol for the show.
Love it. Love it. Very cool.
Very cool.
Thank you. Welcome to Grue, and thank you both so much for taking time and doing this. I appreciate it.
Well, thanks for having us.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. So the first question I want to ask is for Lucas, like what inspired you to write the film and create the role that you're playing in it? Like when I saw he's very like along the lines of like Charles Manson a little bit because like with the look and the cult and how he acts with people and gets in their heads, like it's very Manson like.
That's the first time I've heard that comparison, and now that you mention it, I can absolutely see that. Well, so it came about because Lisa and myself, we had worked together before as collaborators, and so Lisa called me up one day and said, "I think let's work together again, and maybe make a feature." And I come from this world of I think if you're going to do an independent feature, you got to make sure you don't compete with Hollywood and what they would do. So I wanted to do something that was a little outside the box, something that was a little more controversial, maybe that Hollywood would not make, and so. I also wanted to make something about why this, why now. I wanted to make something that wasn't just a horror, but hopefully would open conversations about difficult topics. And so
Mhm.
this notion of like manipulation and having people, we see it around us in the environment all the time across this country, across the world, where people end up in situations where they're sort of being manipulated by people that have more power, more money, maybe more smarts. And so they get manipulated into situations they can't get out of. And so the message is really sort of be careful who you trust when you're at your most vulnerable. And,
Definitely.
and Abraham is, you mentioned the Charlie Manson character. Abraham is someone who is a master manipulator, right? And he's in it for himself, essentially. And so this absolute ruthlessness I find fascinating. And then when I wrote it, as an actor, I tend to get cast as villains, and I'm happy. Usually they're more interesting, but I wanted to make sure this villainous character, so to speak, was also a layered character. And there are many things that Abraham says or does that are not outrageous. They're outrageous, but they're logical. They come from a real place where you're like, oh, I can kind of see where that comes from.
Yeah.
So I wanted to make sure that while he was repulsive, there was also a certain charm or thing that you could sort of connect to in him. And so that was just something I gravitate towards.
Awesome. Awesome. And Lisa, like when you first read the script for the film, like what about the script did you love most and love about your character of Ellen?
Um, when we first talked about the idea and Lucas pitched me the idea, I was like he said, it was something Hollywood wouldn't do. So I was really intrigued. It was something very different. Um, and I think probably my favorite thing about the script is the fact that it's unexpected. There's so many films you see that you know where you're going and then you know the direction and the path. And there's some twists and turns in this film that you don't see coming. And so that was the most appealing to me about the script for sure.
Definitely, yes. And the next question is for you both. Like Lucas mentioned it during, and what's fascinating about the film is how this guy is able to get into the heads of everyone that comes to the house, and it's because of all their past issues and trauma. And how do you both feel about like how someone could get into the head of someone who's like going through a rough patch or going through trauma?
Do you want
Yeah.
to do something?
I mean, I think trusting someone when you're in a vulnerable position is very risky, and you have to know, who this person is and what they're going to tell you and where they're going to lead you. And obviously, every single person that showed up to this house is in their darkest spot, and Abraham knows this and takes advantage of them. So I think that's where a lot of the horror kind of comes from
Mhm.
for me.
And for me, as a writer and a filmmaker and an actor, I think, different things scares every one of us, right? We each could mention three things that we're terrified of or three things that
Yeah.
we trust, and they would all be different. So for me, it was just important I wanted to write something that would scare me, something that I don't feel like I've seen before exactly. And so I'm not necessarily scared by an axe in the head and a head rolling down the hallway. Other people would enjoy that. For me, less scary. It's just a cool special effect. So I think this notion of human nature taking a very dark turn and people being twisted into situations that they don't even know they're being twisted into, and and not being able to get out of certain situations for me is terrifying. So I did some research with Jonestown in Guyana with leaders down there. You mentioned Charles Manson. So there are many incidents of where you can find yourself in a situation where you lose perspective and you no longer see a way out. And if you have somebody as ruthless as Abraham, that's not going to end well for you. So that is horror to me.
Oh my God, yeah, 100%. And what I love about like a good thriller or a good horror is definitely the score, the music for the film. And how did you both know like the sound that you wanted to hear for the film?
So, Stefan Schmidt did the score for the film, and he has done the music for every single film I've directed, and so I've collaborated with him before. And this was a fun challenge because he hasn't worked on a horror before, so kind of we wanted to lean into the horror, but also feel a little unexpected as well, especially in the arrival when Dee comes to the house, and it's kind of
Hmm.
what is this? It's a little something's off, something's weird. And so Stefan and I really kind of leaned into that in that opening. And then as we get into what's really there, I think that the horror kind of sounds come out specifically in the pool scene. And
Yeah.
we had the privilege of working with Tina Guo. She's a cellist, and she works with Hans Zimmer on a bunch of things. So she was our live musician that we recorded for that for the score for the pool, and I'm a big fan of that whole piece right there. I think it works great. So
Nice, nice. Yeah. Yeah, I love how airy some like the score could be for like certain films.
yeah, yeah. It's an important
And
part. I mean, the music it really pulls us in different directions. I mean, what's on the screen. There's so many things that play into the storytelling, and music is a big piece of it for sure.
oh, definitely. And without giving a lot away, of course, about the film, but is there like a certain scene that you both like had the most fun shooting or one that you liked the most?
I think we both enjoyed the pool scene. Is that what you're thinking, Lucas?
Well, yeah, no, different. I'll let you take that one for now.
Okay, I'll
Yeah.
I'll I'll take that one. I think it was challenging in many ways to figure out obviously number one safety and making
Hmm.
sure our actors felt safe and were safe and all of that. So it started with the construction of the cage that's under the pool, which is just I mean, Lucas, this idea of this scene is where psychological. It just gets me every time I watch it, and I was there. I know what it is, but just the idea of holding your breath and being underwater and all that is quite intense. So I mean, every scene of the film has some strengths, but that's probably one of my favorites.
So for me, I mean, I have all my scripts are dark. I just write dark, right? So I have other scripts in that vein, but for me, I'm interested both as an actor as and a writer in subtext, and so while the pool scenes and some of the other scenes are more sort of difficult to shoot just technically because we had stuntmen, we had people in the pool, and there was many different things that could go wrong. For me, just a simple scene of me sitting with Natasha Henstridge's character Dee talking about her pill selection, and we both have something going on under the surface. So we're having a conversation, but we're having an under subtext conversation in each of our heads that's happening simultaneously. That's for me is when a scene pops, where nobody's just speaking what they think. They're speaking one thing and thinking something else. And for that particular scene, it was just so fun to sort of, on the surface, have a very simple, relatively clear, innocent conversation, but both of us are loaded with something else happening. And so I love small moments like that.
Yeah.
Well, I want to thank you both so much for coming on. This has been great. Thanks again for doing this. I appreciate it.
Thanks for having us on.
Yeah. Thanks for having us and for watching the film. We appreciate it.
Of course, of course. I'm a big horror fan, thriller too.
Nice.
Hey,
Bye.
all right,
Thank
thank
you. Bye-bye.